The training yard of the Galactic Defense Academy stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced durasteel, a monument to military precision. Analea watched from the observation deck as another batch of cadets struggled through the obstacle course below. Most were doing well, the Crithani with their 6 limbs, the massive Torvan who could lift twice their body weight, even the crystalline Vexari who processed tactical information faster than any organic computer. But one was failing, a young Felker. They called them cubs. Despite the species protests had frozen halfway through the vertical climb, his tawny fur bristled with fear, claws scrabbling uselessly against the smooth wall. The training sergeant, a grizzled Torvan named Krogos, bellowed commands that only made the cub shake harder. Pathetic, muttered the Crithani instructor beside Anna. The Felkar should never have been approved for combat training. Too emotional, too soft. Analea said nothing. She'd heard it all before the dismissals. The casual cruelty that passed for toughening up in military circles across a dozen species. She'd experienced some of it herself when she first enlisted. Humans were considered too irrational, too prone to sentiment, too willing to die for abstract concepts like honor or friendship. She made her way down to the training yard. The cub, his name was Rinith, according to the roster, had abandoned the wall entirely now. He'd fled to the far corner of the yard, pressed against the barrier fence, his whole body trembling. Krogos was still shouting, threatening demerits, remedial training, expulsion. Sergeant Analea called out, "I'll handle this." Krogos turned, his 4 eyes narrowing. "This isn't your squad, human." "No, but I'm the xenopsychology liaison. It's literally my job." She held his gaze until the massive Torvan snorted and waved her forward. Analea approached Rinith slowly, making no sudden movements. She could see him now, barely 16 standard years, which was young even for his amber eyes were wide with panic, his ears flat against his skull. Every instinct was screaming at him to run, to hide, to escape this place that demanded he be something he wasn't ready to be. She didn't speak. Instead, she simply sat down on the ground beside him, her back against the same fence, close enough that he could feel her presence, but far enough that she wasn't invading his space. The other cadets continued training. Krogos barked orders, the machinery hummed and whirred, but Analea sat in silence. Minutes passed, then more. Rinith's breathing began to slow. His claws retracted slightly. He glanced at her sideways, confusion cutting through the fear. "You're not going to yell?" His voice was barely a whisper, spoken in heavily accented standard. "No," Analea said simply. "Or tell me I'm weak." "No." Another long pause. A Crithani cadet completed the course with a triumphant screech. Rinith flinched at the sound. "I can't do it," he said finally. "Everyone else is stronger, faster. The wall is too high. My claws won't grip. I'm going to fail." "Maybe," Analea acknowledged. She felt him tense beside her at the admission. "But not today. Today you're just scared. Felker don't get scared." His voice cracked on the words, betraying the lie. "Everyone gets scared. That's not weakness. That's survival instinct. Your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do, keep you alive." She picked up a piece of gravel, rolling it between her fingers. "You know what humans are famous for?" Rinith shook his head, being afraid and doing things anyway. She tossed the gravel away. "Every human who's ever done anything brave was terrified. We just decided the goal was worth the fear. But you're soldiers, warriors, you conquered your planet's wars and reached the stars." Analea laughed, short and sharp. "We almost destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We're so afraid of everything that we built weapons capable of ending our entire species just in case. We're afraid of the dark, of being alone, of dying, of living wrong." She turned to look at him. "But we learned something important. Fear doesn't have to stop you. It can just walk beside you." Rinith's ears twitched forward, a sign of interest in Felker body language. "My first month here," Analea continued, "I failed the zero-gravity combat simulation 7 times. I threw up in my helmet twice." The other cadets laughed. "I cried in my bunk and wrote a letter home saying I was quitting." She smiled at the memory. "I never sent it. Instead, I went back the next day, and the day after that. Eventually, I stopped throwing up." "Did you stop being afraid?" "No. I just got better at being afraid." She stood up slowly, dusting off her uniform. "The wall's still there. It'll be there tomorrow too. You can try again whenever you're ready, in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. But right now, how about we start smaller? Walk with me to the mess hall. That's achievable." Rinith looked up at her, then at the wall looming across the yard, then back at her. Slowly, his legs unfolded. He stood, still shaking but upright. "Just to the mess hall?" he asked. "Just to the mess hall." They walked together across the training yard. Analea matched his pace, slow and steady. She didn't praise him or make a spectacle. She simply walked beside him, a quiet presence that said, "You are not alone in this." From the observation deck, Hudson watched through the reinforced glass. He'd been monitoring the situation, ready to intervene if necessary, but Analea had handled it perfectly. That was the thing about humans that other species struggled to understand. Their victories weren't always loud. Sometimes they were as simple as sitting beside someone in pain and waiting with them until the world felt manageable again. He pulled up Rineth's file, making a note, recommend patience and graduated training protocol, high potential if properly supported. 3 months later, Rineth would complete the vertical climb. 6 months after that, he'd graduate in the top 15% of his class. But the moment that mattered most had already happened, not when he conquered his fear, but when he learned he didn't have to face it alone. That was the human way. That was why, despite being physically weaker than most species, mentally slower than others, they'd earned their place among the stars. They understood that strength wasn't just about power. Sometimes it was about sitting in the dust beside someone who'd fallen and waiting with them until they were ready to stand again.